You're watching ChillyBoy Productions. I'm Larry ChillyBoy Chilson, and this is a special Pride Month review for the film Riley. And here to join me today to discuss this film, I have very special guests and friends from the Mashley at the Movies podcast. We have Matt and Ashley. Hello, and thank you for coming on.
Hello.
Hello, Larry. Thanks for having us.
Yes.
It's been a while, right? I think it's been a couple years since our last Pride review that we've done together here for my channel, at
Right.
least. And if you ever want to hear all of us together giving our takes on various films, I have happily been on the Mashley at the Movies podcast several times. So make sure you hit up their podcast. Don't just listen to my episodes, listen to them all because it is a great time. So today we are here to discuss Riley, a 2023 coming of age drama that was the directorial debut for director Benjamin Howard. Riley follows Dakota, who is a star on his high school football team, who is hiding his sexuality. Now, once he starts to unravel his own identity, he is forced to confront denial and come to terms with himself. The film stars Jake Holy in our main role, as well as Colin McCullough, amongst others. So I was excited to check this out because, if you see the background here, I happen to really enjoy a nice queer coming of age story, a nice high school, college themed film about people understanding themselves a little bit better. So when I was searching through the masses of queer film I had yet to see, I thought this might be a nice one to offer up, having not seen it myself quite yet. So I'm excited to hear first what my guests thought of this film. So, Matt, why don't we kick off with you? What were your general thoughts when it came to Riley? Had you seen this before?
No, I had not. No, I liked it. It's very earnest. So there were parts of it where, I don't know, it made me laugh a little bit when I shouldn't have been laughing, but that's because it's just so earnest with itself. But you know what? I actually kind of admire that. I think the acting is good. The performances by all the actors are fine. The direction is fine. And I think the editing of it, there were a couple times where I wasn't quite sure exactly when a certain scene started. Like, okay, where are we? Where are we at in the day? The scene would make it apparent. Yeah, I liked it.
Right, Ashley, what were your general thoughts on Riley?
Well, you kind of hinted at the fact that this is not necessarily an original idea, the high school kid coming of age and struggling to accept his sexuality. So it's kind of all about how it's done. You can have a good movie that's not an original idea, but you just have to go about it in an interesting way. I think this movie is moderately successful at doing that. I liked some of the relationships that are in this movie. I liked Dakota's relationship with the girl who's supposed to be his girlfriend, Skylar. I thought that that was an interesting character arc, and I thought that both actors did a really good job playing those roles. And I thought his friendship with his best friend Jaden was an interesting that was an interesting relationship that went into some interesting places.
If only all our best friends could be like that.
Right. Uh, so I liked some of the relationships. That was I think there was some uniqueness there. And the acting, like Matt said, was all good. There was some kind of laughable dialogue. There were some times where I felt like I was laughing at inappropriate moments, but you know, other than that, I felt like they did a really good job. The cinematography was good. It looked good. It looked like a proper film. You never know when you come into some of these, indie films. You never know what you're gonna get. But this looked good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was a moderately well done film.
Something I wanted to pick up on, you talk about how we've seen movies like this before or whatever. I actually have to stop myself because I initially, when the credits were rolling, my initial reaction was like, yeah, I mean, it's a gay coming of age movie. And then I had to stop myself and I'm like, I am now taking for granted the fact that there have been so many gay coming of age movies that now we just kind of shrug our shoulders at the ones that are, sort of like fine.
Yeah.
And Because yeah, I mean, I remember a time when it was not like this. I am grateful. I am grateful now that we can get so many of these kinds of films, actually.
Yeah, it's a nice problem to have, I guess. Romantic comedies, that's a well done. There are many movies that are follow kind of the same beats, and it's just all about how you go about doing it. So we can tell this story forever. It's just, yeah, the acting, the dialogue, the humor that they bring to it. That's what makes the difference.
Yeah, I think I'm about in line with the two of you. I overall enjoyed this. I think how it wraps up really kind of bumped it up a level for me because I thought it wrapped up in an interesting way. I think in some ways this film is the maybe the earliest iteration of one of these coming of age stories in a person's timeline. This feels like the start of the start. Like he's really just getting there, and we never get to like the big moments that we're used to in queer coming of age, coming out stories. The coming out doesn't even necessarily happen in this film. Like, so we don't get to these moments. This feels like the before effect. This is his coming to terms within his own mind, not with the external world as much. It really was like a more internal struggle. And in many ways, I actually really like that. And I thought it was a nice take to differentiate itself from so many that we've seen in this subgenre. But I did enjoy our main character. I think making him an athlete adds a little bit more of a believability in when it was released 2023 because even in the film one of the characters is like, bro, nobody cares anymore, but there's still such a macho style stigma in football, certainly one of the main sports, but in mainstream sporting by and large, that I think still has not been broken through. As much as all of the professional sports organizations, they come out for pride, most of them at least, some of them this year, quickly stopped doing that and did not post a nice little pride message this year. So just kind of shows you where we're at in 2025 right now. But by and large, they all are like, we sport is for everyone, football's for everyone, the NFL's for everyone. But yet you look around and you're like, well, I still don't see any out athletes that are currently on the field. And we've had a couple that have kind of come out either after the fact, or we had one that came out as he was entering the league, never really, became a prominent player in the league. So it's still in this lane, it feels believable even now to not be ready to come out, not be ready to face that. If your entire future that you and your parents have pathed out is football and that's it, that's what like your whole life is about to hinge on. Yeah, it makes it a lot more believable in that sense.
What did you think of I call it the framing device, where our movie starts out with the main character who he's basically shown up at this stranger's house, a gay guy, and it's for sex. It's like I think he's being paid for sex. That scene, or it keeps popping up throughout the film. I don't know. What did you think of that, Larry?
Well, that one was the one that right down to the very end had me the most confused in the timeline. I was like, so this is like way late. Like, I mean, his bruise, his black eye that he gets at the final part of our normal timeline is almost healed at this point. This is, at least a decent week or two after the final events we see in real time. I that was the part that made me the most uncomfortable for the most part because I was like, boy, this is you're gonna regret this. Like, no offense to this man or whatever. Anyone with eyes can see you are clearly not comfortable with what is going on. You are so unsure of yourself. Run for the door. I don't mean to judge this man, but the way he was handling you was giving me a little bit of the ick, like a little bit of pause where I was like, oh no, I don't know what's going I don't like this. They did have a great moment at the end of that arc, though, that I wasn't expecting to happen because I was like, this man he was low key getting on my nerves a little bit. I don't know. That man was not my favorite character. He was a believable character, but he was not I was like, what is, sir, please. But I like where he ended up and where that story took us. So it was the one that had me most apprehensive throughout that film. Every time we cut to it, I was like, oh. what's gonna happen over here? But yeah, how did you feel about that whole sequence throughout the film?
I wasn't sure about it. It made me feel awkward. I mean, and maybe it was supposed to, but I felt awkward and uncomfortable with it. And yeah, the guy was, I mean, look, on the one hand, I mean, he was paying Riley for sex, right? But and so there, I guess there was an expectation there. But that said, yeah, he was a little creepy. But I do agree with you. The last scene of that arc, I think it was good. It sort of made up for the other parts of it.
I think it added interest to the film because you were always, I was wondering the whole time how did this fit into our overall narrative? I mean, I thought it was okay. I agree with you. I did not like that character, that man, at all. But yeah, it just added some interest.
It's interesting. So, this movie, I've watched a couple. We watch actually have watched a few queer films this week. One of them reminded me of a certain point in my life, and this one actually did as well. In that, like, I don't know how many of these characters in this movie. By the way, I don't know how large this high school is that he attends, but I feel like they have a large quotient of queer people. Like, I turned to Ashley at one point. I'm like, so is every dude in this high school gay or something? But not everyone. I don't know if every character in this movie is going to turn out to be like absolutely homosexual, or if they're just like figuring things out, or just, I don't know, horny and whatever. But it reminded me, like, in fact, there's a particular scene where it takes place in the locker room between Dakota Riley and his best friend Jaden, and where they're just kind of talking, and then all of a sudden it slips into like, wait, like what are you saying, kind of thing. And I mean, I've been in that moment before, not in a locker room, but that kind of took me back. I was like, oh yeah, guys like that. Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Actually, great. The best friend character was really interesting because I feel like he could have his own separate film to come to terms because I don't think he's at terms or being honest at all by the end of this film. I don't know. We hear this story from a third party about some activity he was involved in earlier in his life. We are never told why he's kicked out of his house and living with our main character. We just know he was, but he makes an illusion after something happens between him and our main character about not wanting to get kicked out again, which kind of like hints at why maybe he was kicked out of his own house. And he goes pretty far for with this friend. And as you said, oftentimes is the instigator of these situations. Like in that locker room scene, is the complete instigator of, oh, what do I do here? How do I behave when my very attractive best friend is showing his shaved pubes, and going further with it? What do I, oh, hi, okay, I thought the best friend character was really interesting, and again, a really not expected way to take the character is we don't get this great closure with this best friend character. We're kind of just left where we're left, and I think that's why I like the ending is in most ways it kind of felt a little bit more realistic than a lot of the coming of age stories. We don't know, we're kind of just left open ended. We don't know, does our main character ever come out to his parents and get kicked out of the house or disowned by his crazy, football coach father, or does he lose his best friend? Does his best friend decide to come out? There's so many questions at the end because we don't get that's usually the stretch of the second half of this kind of movie we get, and they end it there. So I thought that was an interesting, if not maybe even a little bit daring choice of them to kind of tell the story so early and cut it before those juicy moments.
True. And it's obvious the movie is telling the story that it wants to tell. But I won't mention exactly what scene it is, but there was a scene in between Riley or Dakota Riley and this character called Liam. The that I thought, like, I was watching that scene unfold, and there was a part of me that was like, if this were a different kind of movie, this could go in a really different direction. It didn't.
Liam was
Yeah,
another interesting character as one of our only out queer people. I mean, that we focus on, that we get any sort of time with. Obviously, there's like that little third friend that is with him and Sky that's obviously also gay. I'm like, oh, so Sky, she's one of those girls that just attracts them all to her, whether one she knows it or not. Her boyfriend right there too in the club, but she is surrounded by all the gays in the school are friends with Sky. Um, but one of those is Liam, who I thought to be a very interesting because he verges on unlikable in a couple moments too, like to where you're like he really pushes it with what he says or like does with our main character that you're like, well, I don't know if I like you as a person either, Liam. But also you see him not often do you see this, especially in these kind of movies, maybe once or twice, but he really stands up and to a football team. Like he's doesn't back down from these people who try to come for him in the school, call him slurs. He went full on at that boy in the football team in the cafeteria. He wasn't taking it from our main character Dakota either. So it was an interesting character overall. Ashley, how'd you feel about him and his storyline here?
I thought it was interesting. Yeah, I think this movie does a good job of developing each one of these characters in a kind of unique way. Liam is not, a stereotypical flaming gay guy. He is that partly, but he's also very confrontational, like you said. And I like that aspect of him. And I think the way that he acts with Dakota is interesting. It's imbued with a variety of different emotions. There's an arc. There's an arc to kind of all these characters and their relationship with Dakota. I think, the more I think about this movie, the more I think there's some really good screenwriting here as far as how all these characters are handled and how they relate to Dakota. We've talked about how the movie ends. At first, I thought it was very abrupt, but now, as I'm thinking about it, I think it ends at the perfect place. There are arcs that have been developed and explored with all of these different characters. It doesn't, like you said, Larry, it doesn't kind of tie everything up in a neat and happy way. It's very realistic in the way that it ends, and it kind of helps narrow the scope of this film. There is, I think, a really good kind of cathartic, emotional scene before the end, and I think that's kind of what this movie was shooting for it was going towards that moment, and I think that was enough, and I'm glad that they kind of kept it focused.
Real quick, I want to throw in Riley Quinn Scott, who plays Skylar, Dakota's sort of girlfriend. I think she's the MVP in this movie. I love her character. I love the performance. I just love her character. Yeah. And then one more thing too. I have to mention this. Look, I don't know how old the writer director of this movie is, but there are a couple lines in here. I turned to Ashley. I'm like, so do modern high schoolers talk like this? So there was a line. I think it was Skylar. I don't know, somebody says something and she like reacts with this enthusiastic line of like, hot dog. And I was like, what? Like, do young people talk like that? To say hot dog? And then this other line was, and I think it was Skylar too. She got landed with these bad lines, but I don't know. Somebody talks to her about something and she says, that shit was bomb. And I was like, okay. I don't know if this is the way high schoolers talk now, or if this is the way whoever's writing this thinks that high schoolers will talk, but I chuckled. Those aren't things I'm like super like, nitpicking on really. I'm just saying they gave me a laugh when I heard them, so I wanted to just briefly go over that.
Yeah, I think for as well as the film explores the exploration of your identity, the actual dialogue is where that screenplay really needs help. There's a lot of conversations in here that I'm like, okay, there's a little bit too much, a little bit cheesy, a little bit on the nose. And then when we got to some of these like steamier moments, I was like, oh, this feels straight out of Wattpad. Like this feels like fanfic come to the screen because I mean that situation in the locker room. If we had taken that one more step and we're ready to full on be banging on the benches, this is literally a story you read on something like Wattpad. Same thing with that thing in the bed in the bedroom where all of a sudden we're taking our junk out and doing all this stuff. It's like what? Like there was many times where I was like, this movie is wild. Like there are a lot of things in here that literally had me hollering because I mean, I was a little bit shook that we were taking it to these places just because some of them feel almost out of the blue. Like you're just like, whoa, 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 we're really doing this with these two characters. Okay. And that we're going in it this direct. Okay. Cool. Sounds good. Like you said, if only we all had sexy best friends like this that were willing to go down these rabbit holes with us in 12th grade. But yeah, the screenplay is good on a base level. It just needed somebody to come in and help him punch up some of that dialogue that was like, ooh. I also think our main character got like punched in the face a lot. I was but the last time it happened, I was like, how many times is this boy going to get punched or get into like these crazy fights in
Right?
this
He has a bloody
movie?
nose through most of the movie.
Yeah, and I had to laugh when after he had his second punch and got a really bad black eye. Before he started the football game, he painted his other eye black. So basically, he looked like a raccoon. I think I said earlier, this movie is very horny. I mean, it's like there are shirtless guys, there's sexual innuendo or activity in, in like every other scene at least. And I don't know. I guess I'm old enough that I'm so far removed from that age. I had to like stop for a moment and kind of think back, and then I was like, okay, yeah, yeah, all right, that's I mean, when you look, young men particularly are that's they think about sex a lot, I think.
I guess I wish particularly we got again, they were kind of just there to further show, like more than just the football, you could tell his home environment was not really conducive either for him accepting himself necessarily. His father's like this hyper, masculine football guy who pretty much doesn't want to talk to him about anything but football. Like his son is like crying because he got like bullied about being gay. And this man is just like, what the hell are you crying about hazing for? Also, I thought they used the word hazing very oddly in this film, like teasing and hazing. I was like, oh no, 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 we're not gonna equate hazing. It's just like cute little Jesus, hazing usually implies a lot worse than just a word or two. Hazing usually is a little bit more extreme. So this dad wasn't obviously very emotionally open at all. And then the mom, the only things we get from her are that moment where she starts alluding to something. Like clearly something's going through her head because I don't know why else she brought up. Don't we think it's a little weird for boys of your age to be having sleepovers? It's not really a sleepover if you decided to take in a kid who got kicked out of his house. I think that's not what I would constitute as a sleepover, ma'am. But her even insinuating that clearly something was going through her head. And then the only other time we really see her is her saying grace, like doing a prayer over dinner. So really, she was just kind of there to, again, maybe show how his family life was not the most open place for him to kind of feel safe to explore. But maybe I would have liked another scene or two with that, but that's just kind of a random nitpick, I think.
The parent characters were very underdeveloped. I mean, even the father, who has quite a few scenes, I mean, he's just such a stereotypical, shallow jock character that I don't know, he felt underwritten and they could have done better, I think, with that.
Yeah, I consider this a solid middle of the road gay coming of age movie, and one of the reasons is some of the characters. I think in a really good movie like this, every character is well developed and has an arc. I think you, Ashley, or Larry, were talking earlier. A lot of the like high school characters have that, but the two parental characters, the mom, aside from like the scene Larry talks about, and then the dinner scene is like not in it aside from those, and then the dad never. I mean, he there's never any like yeah, there's never any depth to him. In fact, there's a scene where Dakota's talking to his dad about, and I forget what question he asks him, but he asks his dad a question, and I thought like, okay, this will be the moment because most good movies like this will have it where like okay they add a little bit of depth or perspective to this one character that maybe you didn't like before or didn't think but no like the answer his dad gave is like okay this dad has no depth at all. He is just a pure jock. That's all he is.
Football and only football, that's all he thinks about.
Hmm.
Yeah, I thought it was a an interesting, but when I this is an interesting choice. I still don't know that I love is that scene with the father of just making him so closed off. Yeah, it was about his injury. He asks him like, "How did you feel? Like, were you worried about letting people down, or like, what were you thinking about when, you had this career-ending injury?" And the dad says, "I was thinking, ouch, my shoulder hurts." Like, like, sir, what? But even that, you would have thought maybe the dad would give him a talk about responsibility or something. Even if it is a scene that further makes him realize, I can't come out to these people because he cements it. Instead, they just go and literally have him like this wall that this father has built up to block any and all emotional anything is so strong. I mean, you would have to, I don't even know what could take that. You'd have to nuke it literally to bring that wall down. It is so crazy. But yeah, the parents were definitely one of the weaker points. But yeah, did either of you have any final thoughts when it came to 2023's Riley?
I don't. I think it's an interesting movie. It's solid enough that I would recommend, particularly during Pride Month, that folks give it a watch.
Yeah, I'd recommend it too.
Same. I think it does enough to distinguish itself amongst the landscape of coming of age stories for high schoolers, particularly queer coming of age stories. I think it does enough story wise to make it worth checking out, that it might give you a different aspect to the process, maybe enlighten some folks to other parts of themselves and their process. And it is somewhat readily available. Where did you all watch this at?
We rented it off of Amazon Prime. Now, I think it was through, Amazon Prime splinters off and has access to other streaming services. So it was through another streaming platform, but through Amazon Prime.
Yeah, so it is available digitally, not the most available. It's not just like on the streaming platforms. We found that out this Pride series. Some of these queer films I've been trying to watch for this series have taken a little bit of work to get my hands on. So I think I've gotten to the stage where I've reviewed all the ones that are everywhere for Pride Month. Notably a lot of these that are behind me right now. You just find them wherever you want to look. We're at the point in this series where you got to do a little bit more digging to get down to some of these movies. But as we all have said, this is one that, the dig I think at the end of it is worth the watch. So check out Riley. Let us all know what you think. I thank you all so much for checking out our review. If you liked the review, hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel so that you are always up to date on all of my latest videos, including each and every one of my Pride Month series videos this month. Also, make sure that you check out Matt and Ashley and their podcast. Do you all want to let people know where they can find you?
Yeah, well, different places. We're on Instagram, X, and Blue Sky under Mashley Movies, and then on Facebook under Mashley Movies, and then we have a website, mashleymovies.com.
Perfect. And I do know that they are also doing some Pride Month related content. So if you're looking to support more queer content creators for Pride Month who are going further in depth and discussing cinema and art made for and by people within the community, definitely please make sure to check them out. Also, make sure to leave your thoughts and comments in that comment section below if you've seen Riley. I love you all so much for your continued support. Mwah. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.